the way that this franchise started and then now at this 10th X movie, I wasn't expecting the Fast and Furious to get this dark. Hey, what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I am an artist and a film enthusiast. I have drawn some Saw X art, and now I want to review the movie. Right off the bat, I'm a huge Saw fan, so this had my ticket money already just by being announced. I love the way this franchise is more of a soap opera the further it goes on. It just gets more and more convoluted and creative in the way that it goes about it. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, but as a whole, I really appreciate it. Honestly, overall thoughts, Saw X is really good. In fact, it might be one of my favorite sequels. Just in case you're worried, I'm not going to spoil the twist ending of this movie. That's a thing for Saw, they all have one. Won't be spoiling it, won't even touch on it, I promise. I will get at the very most halfway through the movie, and then I won't talk about anything past that. Okay, so the first 30 minutes of this movie is mostly just John Kramer kind of going about his life. This one is set in between Saw 1 and 2, so he's kind of in the middle of his career as Jigsaw. And at first, in those 30 minutes, I was a little bit worried because it kind of felt like they weren't gonna, have a Saw movie in this Saw movie. But by the time everything starts kicking into gear, I think it's really clear that we needed all of that setup. We need to be emotionally invested in John Kramer in a way that we really haven't in the rest of the franchise. It's a very unique angle for this, which is crazy to say because it's the 10th movie. Like, name one other 10th movie that has just completely changed the game, because Saw games. It is a unique angle because this is the first time that we've actually followed Kramer. Every other time it's been some detective trying to figure out who he is or where he is. This time our protagonist of this movie is Kramer, and if you've seen the trailers, I guess spoiler if you haven't seen the trailers because they play it like a big reveal, but they also showed it anyway, spoilers if you haven't seen the trailers. Pretty quick, Amanda also shows up. She's also a protagonist in this movie. So there's a lot of emotional dynamics going on through the whole thing. You get to see Amanda and the way that she develops her hesitance towards some of the things that Kramer's doing. You even get to see Kramer kind of get his resolve tested in terms of what he's doing and the morality that he has behind it, which has always been, to me, the most interesting part of the Saw franchise. There's a line in part 2 where Kramer says that he's never killed anyone. He's not a murderer, and okay. But that's what makes his character so interesting, is he's convinced that he's doing the right thing for the right reasons, even if that's a little psychotic. This is a movie that takes that and plays with it and really puts it to the test, right? He is front and center in this movie in a way that he never has been before. And you really have to buy into that for this whole thing to work. Otherwise, it just seems cruel. Which, to be fair, is it a little bit? Yes, but it's like a cruelty response to cruelty. Anyway, I love the way that they developed Kramer's character. It's weird to set a movie in between the first and second of any franchise, but especially this one because it doesn't seem like there's a ton of space there. They did a great job as far as I'm concerned. Honestly, that's kind of my general takeaway for this movie. They killed it. This is a great Saw movie. That said, if you're not a fan of the Saw movies, Saw X is not going to be the one to change your mind. In fact, I think if you've seen one of them, you kind of know. Is this my franchise or is it not? For me, totally. I love these movies. I can definitely see an alternate version of these movies that is exactly what everyone claims that these are, but there's a lot more thinking that goes into these. It's not just creative ways to kill people. And of course I'm on board with that element of it. Sorry, Mom. But if that's all they provided, there's no way they would get to 10 movies. In fact, I think there's a reason that the last couple of Saw movies didn't really spark any extra interest in the franchise, where I really could see Saw X being the start of the next section of Saw movies. You know how the first 3 are kind of one, and then 4 through 6 or 7 are kind of another set. This could be the start of another set of Saw movies, and I really hope that it is. I really liked this movie. I feel like this really does a good job blending that character-focused Saw 1, 2, and 3, and then the soap opera, crazy traps kind of extravagance of 4 through 7. You can kind of write off Jigsaw if you want to, and you could definitely just completely ignore Spiral. It doesn't matter. I will say, if I have to have a negative for this movie, some of the pacing is a little bit weird, not just within the first 30 minutes, but then toward the end, it feels like kind of a go, stop sort of thing. I think the tone kind of keeps it together, but the pacing is a little weird, and I think there's moments that you might have shaved a little off or added a couple more scenes to. The movie itself feels just a little bit rough around the edges. I think there's also an argument to be made for this not having the most unique traps in the franchise. There's definitely a couple that I think stand out, but I don't know that that's inherently a bad thing. I think if they went for some crazy, unique, exciting trap that would be like mind-blowing for fans. It would feel a little weird if you watched this in order and went Saw 1, pretty standard, now Saw X, and it's just like, crazy shit, and then Saw 2, it's like some needles and a gun. I feel like it would be jarring to watch, where this does feel like an escalation from the first movie. It doesn't feel like there's been 9 other of these movies. And I can also see them going on to 2, where the traps make it a little less elaborate, but the whole plan is way more elaborate. That makes sense to me. If this was supposed to be like the last Jigsaw thing, it would probably be a little underwhelming, but I think as it stands, it's still really solid. The focus of this movie isn't as much the traps as it is the characters. Still feels like an insane thing to say about a Saw movie, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be really upset about that concept. You go into these movies wanting to see the Saw traps, and I'll even say, okay, minor spoilers for the very beginning of the movie, the whole eyeball trap that they've really advertised, like it's on the poster, it's on the whole thing. If I read this movie correctly, that never actually happened. It was just a thing that Kramer imagined. Not that it really matters because all of this is fiction, but there is something kind of disappointing about the biggest trap that they've been advertising being like a bait and switch kind of thing. That feels like some people are going to get upset about that, and I'm not even sure that I'm not a little bothered by that. It's just in the grand scheme, this movie is good enough by the end that I just don't care. Yeah, I don't know. My thoughts on Saw X are pretty uncomplicated, which feels kind of weird. I was really worried that this movie was going to be really disappointing and then just another like Saw sequel that you can go, yeah, Saw was good, and then there were a couple others. I don't know, man. This has the same kind of energy of that Scream requel that we're just kind of getting back into. I could see this being at least a new trilogy of Saw movies, and I'm all here for it. While I don't know that the next one has to be a direct sequel to this, I do think that it set up some things that you could follow up on. It left some questions open, which they gotta do. This movie's gonna make so much money because all the Saw movies make so much money because they're made for like $4 in a Kit Kat bar, which is honestly great. Like with this kind of concept, you don't need a multi-billion-dollar budget for this. Like, get Tobin Bell, get one of his many random apprentices, and just give us a cool Saw story. But even if it doesn't set up a whole new era of Saw movies, I'm kind of okay with that. I would love to kind of delve into that history as much as they want to. Give us some backstories. You could even do a couple that are like half that and half new. I'm great with that. I think that'd be really interesting. But if they never do, this is a great Saw movie, and I think it fleshed out a lot of the kind of missing pieces in Kramer's story and just the way that he acts as a character. It gave us more Amanda, which is literally never a bad thing. I think this is a movie that had a clear direction for what it wanted to do, and it achieved exactly that and didn't try to build up a whole new thing, which is really good. I've gotten a little bit tired of movies that feel like setup for other movies. I'm not counting Marvel in that. I know everybody wants to jump on that train. They get a pass for me because A, I think their stories are well written, and B, I care too much about the universe to give a shit at this point. But what does bother me is new franchises that they're trying to make a franchise. I understand why you do that. I just don't want every movie to be an episode in a long-running series of movies. I want more movies like Saw X that know exactly what story they want to tell and just do a really great, very gross job of telling that story. That actually is one more thing that I wanted to say. I don't know who did the practical effects for this movie, but holy shit. This is probably one of the grossest Saw movies. The original and foremost point of a Saw movie is to make you go, ooh, and then eat your burger or whatever you have. I'm not convinced that some people's legs didn't get cut off. Not saying he did. I'm just saying that if I heard a news report that the director of this movie got put in jail because he fully cut a lady's leg off just for the film, I wouldn't be totally blown away. They look that good. All that to say, Saw X has some incredible effects. The writing is really good. The character work is great. Tobin Bell, always incredible. Everybody on the cast nails it. They are eating the scenes up. If you like the Saw franchise, I highly recommend this movie. And if you don't know if you like the Saw franchise, but think you might, this is not a bad place to start. I will say, as is the nature of the 10th movie in a franchise, especially one that's kind of set in the middle of the whole deal, you'll get some spoilers. Amanda et al., her character, her being an apprentice of Jigsaw, is already the twist ending to 2. Well, one of them. It spoils some movies after 2, so if you're like, oh, I've seen 1 and 2, I should be fine. There's a couple of things that will definitely spoil parts of other movies. I still recommend seeing it. If you want to see this movie, I really hope you do, because I think it definitely delivers. I also hope that it makes a lot of money and we get back to annual Saw movies, because that's just, life is just good when you get to watch a Saw movie every year. Thanks for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on the Saw movies or other horror movies or other just movies, TV shows, comics, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment down below what you'd like me to review, or do none of that, because I am not your dad. And honestly, just quick overall thoughts. Man, I keep saying Fast X.